All right, hey guys, welcome to our 7th episode of the Carnivore Roundtable. Today our topic is carnivore diet variety. My name is Vajid Khan. I am a medical doctor, Canadian trained and fellowship trained radiologist. And one of my big passions is health through nutrition, disease prevention through diet, and learning all about it. So that's why I'm participating in the Carnivore Roundtable, and I'm going to hand it over to my other co-hosts, Alicia and Petra, to introduce themselves. So Alicia, do you want to say hello to everybody?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Alicia, as Wajid said. I'm just a regular person with a passion for health and nutrition, and I found myself following a low carb diet about 4 years now, and more animal based in the past year and a half. And I just love learning about all of this fun stuff and doing a deeper dive into a lot of these different topics like today. So, super excited. Excited for the. Can we edit that back?
Yeah, I can remove the F-bomb. It's okay.
All right. You think this isn't live? Okay. Let me restart that. Okay, so bad. We just cuts to me. Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Alicia, as Vajid said, and I am just a regular person with a passion for health and nutrition. I have been following a low carb diet for the past 4-ish years and more animal based for the past year and a half. I'm super excited to do a deeper dive into the health and nutrition talks with Austin today. So, yeah, let's get going.
And hey guys, I'm Petra. I'm from the Meters on Instagram, so only one meter is here today. Daniel won't be joining us, but I've been eating an animal-based diet for a little bit over a year and a half and have found this kind of like a newfound passion for health through nutrition, and I'm really looking forward to today's episode.
Okay, great. So on that note, I'm going to introduce our guest today on the Carnivore Roundtable. So this is Austin Cavelli. She's a nationally certified physician assistant and dietary consultant who has treated thousands of patients with acute and chronic inflammatory diseases, including various autoimmune conditions. She's well-versed in low-carb and ketogenic diets, especially the carnivore diet. She helps people all over the world reduce inflammation, lose weight, and improve their health with a carnivore diet. She holds a master's in medical sciences from Cornell and focuses her approach on food quality and bio-individuality. This means taking the just eat meat method to the next level with laboratory analysis and a personalized plan tailored to the patient's specific nutritional needs and health goals. So welcome, Austin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward. It's going to be an interesting discussion, I think. A lot of things we have to talk about. Before we dive in, I'm just going to give all our viewers here a bit of a medical disclaimer. So, you guys should realize that this should not be taken as medical advice. It's not tailored. It's not customized to you. So especially if you're on medication or have specific medical diagnoses, you shouldn't take anything we say here as medical advice. It's really just for your information, and you can go and explore and consult with clinicians as you need to treat your various conditions. Alrighty, so let's get started. So our first sort of half of the conversation on carnivore variety, we're going to focus on basically eating nose-to-tail carnivore, because this is a thing that comes up a lot with the carnivore diet. Do you just eat steak? Do you eat, nose to tail? What do you need to do? What does that mean? So I'm going to start off by asking Austin a question to sort of introduce this topic. Austin, what does eating nose-to-tail carnivore mean to you?
Yeah, so eating nose to tail is really eating all aspects of the animal. So, nose to tail in the sense that you're not only eating the muscle meat, but you're also including organ meats and the more connective tissue of the animal as well, the more collagenous cuts, ligaments, tendons, so those types of things versus just muscle meat alone.
Okay, great. Do you guys have anything else to add to that, Alicia, Petra?
Yeah, so I was wondering, I think that's really cool, but are there any specific tissues or organs that you think should be emphasized and why?
Yeah, so as far as getting the most bang for your buck, so to speak, liver is really the number one. If you had to choose one of them, I would say liver. That being said, it's not the easiest to consume as far as taste and texture. But there are other ones that are a little bit easier to start with. Heart, for example, tastes more like a steak, and it doesn't have that organ taste, kind of aftertaste. So that's another great one, as well as kidney. And kidney, I found not only for taste again is along the lines of liver, as far as not being the easiest, but in terms of actual benefits in clients for histamine intolerances and things like that, is with regard to symptoms, kidney is one that I recommend very often as well.
Yeah, there's a really great article by Chris Kresser where he talks sort of about liver and how important it is to eat grass-fed liver. It's like nature's multivitamin. He has this really nice chart. It's 100 grams of apples compared to 100 grams of carrots to 100 grams of sort of just regular muscle meat from like beef, and then 100 grams of liver. And it's like, you know, apples and carrots in terms of nutrient density are like down here, then it's red meat, and then like liver just like crushes them all. It's just like a true titan, you know.
I literally have that chart ingrained in my brain when I'm speaking to clients about organ meats, because you know they do, even with things like spinach, like, oh well, there's iron in spinach, and yes, but the bioavailability, what you're actually absorbing, is very different across those different groups. So it is so important. Liver, by all means, trumps all.
Yeah, and I mean, spinach specifically comes up a lot. You know, Popeye, it's kind of ingrained in our pop culture that spinach has iron, but it's not the most bioavailable form. It's not heme iron. I think it's something like 1% of the iron from spinach we absorb, or some kind of really low number. I'm not sure the exact number.
Yeah, I think the equivalent that you would need, I think it was 10 cups.
Yeah.
For like, to compare it to, I think it was a 3-ounce piece of even just a piece of steak. So, you know, the fact that the organ meats are they have even more nutrients than that. I'm not sure the exact equivalent as far as cups of spinach, but even so, who would eat, you know, 10 cups of spinach in one day? That's a lot.
Yeah.
Oxalates aside.
Right?
That's right. There's more anti-nutrients in those plant foods too that'll inhibit absorption of other things too. So yeah, I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole, but
yeah.
Paleo Medicina also emphasizes beef liver, so it's good to hear that you agree with them too.
Absolutely.
I was wondering, do you find, like, working with your clients, that there are certain cuts of organ meats that people neglect?
So as far as neglecting certain ones, I think there's ones that are definitely more intimidating. Let's say, for example, thymus. People know that it is beneficial for them, but the prep to have it soak and then get that membrane off, I would say those things around that nature is why most people neglect them. Spleen is another one. It has this membrane that it is difficult to remove. The only other one, as far as I think that people neglect wrapping their heads around to eat it, is brain. It doesn't come with a membrane. It's actually one of the best textured organ meats that there are, in my opinion, as far as being creamy and rich. But to eat a brain, many people have trouble getting that into their head. That's a mental struggle for them.
Yeah. And with the membrane, because like before this carnivore diet, this animal-based way of eating, I was always told when cooking ribs to remove the membrane. But recently I've been thinking, wouldn't it be beneficial to eat the membrane? Because isn't the removal of the membrane just so that the consistency is like a fall off the bone type of consistency? So I found myself leaving the membrane on and my ribs still fall off the bone. And I'm thinking maybe I'm getting some kind of nutrients from the membrane as well. Like, I don't want to exclude any part anymore, you know?
Right. No, absolutely. It's really just if the membrane is something that's difficult for you to, as far as the texture. So for some people, yeah, it's even seeing that. I know people that I've introduced even just suet to, and you know, those kind of spider web like pieces, just seeing that texture kind of makes their stomach turn. For me, those are like the best parts. So I think if it's a matter of the texture, it's getting past that first, and then like you said, how you evolve and you keep it on, because there is collagen in it and there's benefits to eating it. We'll cross that bridge next.
Yeah. On that note, maybe we can do a little bit of like a deeper dive into each organ, and like maybe like a top 2 or 3 reasons why those organs specifically are important to eat, if you don't mind. Maybe we can start with the connective tissues, since that's often kind of one that people don't discuss too much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess one of that's more common is like the oxtail and kind of for more collagenous cuts that are actually steaks or things that need to be done in a crock pot, even like chuck roast or beef cheek versus your tender filet mignon. Those things have more collagen in them, more connective tissue. So you'll see they do have to be slow cooked in a crock pot. A lot of people are using the Instapot now, which is helpful for histamine reasons. But those would be kind of the connective tissue ones. In terms of liver, kidney, brain, thymus, heart, testicle, those are kind of more that are available, whether it's your local farm or they have them on US Wellness Meats. And really, as far as getting them down or tastes and textures, liver, like I said, I have found that it's actually sweetest when it's raw. So I encourage people to try it raw, and I have a hashtag raw liver savage to encourage that as well. It is sweetest when it's raw and it's grass fed, grass finished. It becomes more metallic when it is pan seared, and it's the heating of the minerals. So that aftertaste is actually going to be worse when it's cooked more thoroughly. Even pan searing it, a couple seconds on each side, if that. Kidney, I found the best way as far as texture and taste is baking it. I absolutely love baked kidney. I never have to, I get it, again, always sourcing it locally, grass-fed, grass-finished is going to be your best bet. But baking it, I never have to soak it. I never have that aftertaste when, if I were to eat it like pan-seared. Pan-seared actually, or sauteed, removes a lot of the moisture of a kidney. The kidney is fluffed up with water. So when you do that, it actually removes that moisture and makes the taste more concentrated, I think. Kidney, I would say raw or baked. Brain, actually really, really good texture when it's pan seared. It becomes like a mix between scrambled eggs and mashed potatoes. It's creamy, it's rich. Raw is also very, very good. Brain doesn't really have a taste, even when it's raw. So either of those options. The thymus, I found, is best when it actually is more pan-seared or sautéed, and I think it's a much more common dish, especially in Europe. But it becomes more like chicken, so it has that consistency of chicken. Even adding like pork rinds, you can make it more like popcorn chicken if you do it sautéed or in an air fryer. So that one's texture-wise is easier. Raw, it's very glandular and squishy. So many people will not like thymus or the sweetbreads raw. Heart is very similar to a steak. So grilling it is actually, I found, the best. And if you are to pan sear it, it can become pretty tough. So I would say, again, very, very lightly, a couple seconds, similar to liver on each side. And heart is also very easy to do raw, kind of like if you do it in thin sheets, like you would a carpaccio. Very, very good. Am I missing any?
No, I think you covered all the organs. I guess I was just curious. I mean, we're trying to, I guess, encourage or convince our viewers that, adding variety to their diet through organs, is a good thing to do. And I mean, those are all great ways to maybe prepare them in different ways so they're more palatable. But maybe for some of our viewers, they'll need to be convinced for the reason to even consume liver or consume brain.
Okay.
So like if you have any insights about specific vitamins or minerals that are especially found in those, that might help, and what that might improve in somebody's body or why it might be needed by their body.
Right. So the biggest one you'll hear about, which is a lot of the reason people will do liver, is because of the added benefits of energy. Liver is a huge, has a lot of B vitamins, and those are what really give you this increased energy. And people have noticed it even within, a short time of consuming it, that, wow, yeah, I have this energy. In fact, I've noticed in myself with the incorporation of it that I can't eat it past a certain time because I'll be awake in bed and not being able to sleep because of the B vitamins. So B vitamins are great for high energy. Also vitamin K2, great for metabolism and bones. Also copper, which we're finding now is very important for histamines in terms of counteracting histamine levels. It's the DAO enzyme that you want to increase, which is in kidney, and also copper levels in order to kind of clear out the histamine levels. As far as heart is a great option for riboflavin, which is B2 as well, similar to liver, and also for methylation and metabolism. So converting your folate, and which is a process that we've heard in the carnivore space, people who have genetic mutations of the MTHFR gene, which is a problem with methylation, making sure your methionine and that conversion, that you're eating the right nutrients for that reason. So CoQ10 and the riboflavin or B2 for methylation are important, and those are consumed with beef heart. So that's another one.
How about brain? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, brain, yes. So brain is, as I had mentioned, very rich and creamy texture. And a lot of that has to do with the amount of cholesterol and omega-3s in it. So EPA, DHA, very high in, very good for your nervous system in the lubrication of not only your nerves, but also for your brain, as your brain is mostly cholesterol and fat, and for your muscles as well. So that is the biggest one for brain. Thymus, sweetbreads have a lot of vitamin C, which a lot of people don't know about. So as far as immune function, thymus is excellent with that regard. If anybody's worried about scurvy, that would be your go-to for that.
Okay, and how about kidney? What, I mean, because that's one of the ones that tastes a little bit funny. Why should people eat kidney?
Yeah. So kidney, again, baked is best, but for the DAO enzyme. So when people have histamine problems, it's either that they've consumed too much histamine or they don't have enough DAO enzyme, which basically kind of counteracts the histamine levels. So in order to get rid of histamine intolerances, you either want to minimize the amount of histamine that you're having, which can be done with different cooking methods, or you want to increase the amount of DAO enzyme that you're having. And in order, one of the foods that is very high in DAO enzyme is kidney.
Okay, cool. And then how about bone marrow? Because that's another one. I mean, I think it tastes pretty good. I think people are pretty okay with eating it, but what's good about bone marrow for you?
Yeah, so bone marrow, again, is just a very, very good fat as far as saturated fats. It also has a lot of minerals from the bones itself when it is cooked in like a bone broth. So you're getting those minerals as well, which a lot of, especially important today is that our water is stripped of these minerals. So things like bone broth and incorporating that bone marrow are very, very important for that reason.
Okay, cool.
How important is it for organ meats to be grass-fed? Because I personally only buy grass-fed organ meats, but I do have a brain in my freezer that's not grass-fed, and I'm probably gonna eat it just because I don't like to let any food go to waste. But I'm a little bit iffy about it.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And honestly, a lot of these organ meats, with the exception of thymus and brain, are a little bit heavier in fat, but even so, like not as compared to like a rib, like even so, it's not a 1-to-1 as far as fat to protein. So a lot of these organs are lean. So in the sense of grain-fed versus grass-fed, there's less concern with the organ meats. Of course, I always say I like, locally sourced again, and it's more so about bacteria versus in a conventionally raised animal versus more than the grain-fed versus grass-fed. But because these organs are lean, yeah, I would say that would be less of an issue. Of course, locally is always better, but if it's locally in grain in an organ versus grass. I have less concerns.
Yeah, I've heard that too, because I've heard that something along the lines of the toxins are found like in the fattiest cuts.
Exactly.
So
That's where they'd be deposited, would
yeah,
be in the fat of the animal. So with less fat, there you would suspect less toxins.
that's awesome. That's good to know. We used to get our oxtail from like this grocery store, and we had no idea where the meat was coming from. And then I know a good friend of ours told us about that, and we're like, oh shoot, we gotta get it
Yeah.
grass now. So we
No,
switched
that's
up a
a
bit.
really good point.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, another thing that we really enjoy to kind of incorporate those organ meats without actually having to just eat liver and kidney and all that on its own, which I don't really mind, but my partner Daniel does, is we get the ground meat that's already grinded up with tongue, heart, liver, and we make those into burgers. So I don't know if you've ever tried that. It's pretty.
Yeah. So that's actually one thing that I will suggest to people, if they can't quite tolerate it on its own, would be mixing it in with ground beef, whether they're making meatballs or burgers. And a lot of these, I will just kind of shed light on the fact that some companies, they don't necessarily have, similar to kind of selling brain or selling some of these organs, they can be more difficult to get your hands on because of regulations. So with that, I have seen some regulations with even incorporating them in with the ground beef. So if you can't find one that has, ground beef with the mixed organs, the other name that they will disguise it as is pet food. And it really is not just for pets, it's just what they have to call it in order to be able to sell it. So that's another thing to look into when you're trying to buy it mixed in with ground beef. The other way, of course, would be to do it yourself. Ground beef with, even if you did 10%, of liver, an ounce or two, it's an excellent way to do it. The other way that I have recommended for clients to get organs in if they can't tolerate the taste would be to take it like a pill. I always think that actually consuming the food is better than any type of supplement, because again, we've gone to this diet in order to avoid processed things and processed foods. So even a supplement is going into a processed facility. So I do always encourage eating the food itself, but you can take it like a pill. So divvying it up into 1 ounce portions and putting it, whether you want to put it in one of those Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday pill boxes in the freezer, or putting it in a glass container and just small little after having sliced it up into 1 ounce portions, and taking it, swallowing it whole and frozen each day like a pill. And by doing it raw and frozen, the taste and the texture will be completely minimized. So it'll just be a matter of swallowing it.
Yeah.
I was trying, not frozen, but I was slicing my beef liver up, and then it was just like 1 ounce and just trying to swallow it. And doing that every day, it was like the worst part of my day. I would dread that every day.
I will say definitely try it frozen, because
Okay.
that makes it where it's more of like a food, like some people, it's that texture on the back of their throat that will make them gag, and it's not going down. So if you do try it frozen, it does create it where it's more like, oh yeah, and you think about it, you've had bigger chunks of food or harder pieces of food than liver. So when it's frozen, it makes it more like, oh, this is just a big chunk of food. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, the way I've gotten around is like you guys were talking about, is that organ grind. I mean, if our viewers are concerned about this, have a talk with your butcher. Like my butcher, basically, if I order enough, he'll do it. Like he does, like 7 to 10 pounds of liver, 3 or 4 pounds of brain, some kidneys, some heart. And honestly, it tastes almost just like ground beef. Like you get a mild taste of liver, and then I can mix ground suet into it to add a bit more fat content to it, and it's pretty good, and it's convenient. It's easy to cook, easy to eat. So
yeah, and even like I said, with the different cooking methods. So if you were to make it into a meatball and bake it, even though it's ground beef, but it has the organ in it, you may not taste that liver as much as if you were to make it sauteed with like more direct heat, pan seared like a burger. So I definitely encourage people to try it with different methods of cooking, again, for that, to kind of to minimize the metallic taste.
Okay.
Sure. To
Sounds
your point, Badge, in my the farm that I go to, Wild Meadows Farm, they just not too long ago started combining high fat ground beef.
Oh
Which is
man.
so cool because everywhere you go, it's like lean ground beef, lean ground
Yeah.
beef. I just ordered some. I've never tried it, so I'm very excited.
No, I have a local farm here, and they do, yeah, they do the 20%, 80-20. It is always in the fattier cut of ground beef, and it's phenomenal.
That's the first step to breaking the stigma around fat, right? Let's start with that lean ground beef stuff. Like, what's that all about?
Well, the way I get
Well,
around it,
lean ground
yeah, and I mean, you
and
can only
lean
find
organ.
lean and extra lean, right? That's all the butchers really have usually.
Yeah.
What I do is I order the organ grind separately, and I order packets of ground suet separately, and then I just mix them like 3-to-1, 4-to-1, or something, and I just kind of up the fat content
Yeah.
myself.
Do you have like a grinder, like a food processor thing?
No, it comes ground. It comes ground, so you just mix it up. Yeah.
Okay, I thought like you were in your kitchen, like.
No, I don't. I'm not like. Yeah, I don't have time to sit there grinding meat.
You had time for that. That's why.
No, probably not. One day, maybe. Yeah, when I'll semi-retire and just grind meat in my spare time. Okay. So, do you have any other? I mean, we've talked about a bunch of sort of tips and tricks to get around some of the taste, some of the texture apprehension people have for eating organs. Is there anything else we've missed, or should we move on to the next topic? Or
yeah, no, I think unless there's anything else that you guys want me to shed light on, I think I went over kind of the cooking methods as far as organs.
What about? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. You go.
I was just going to ask about condiments. Like, what do you use? What do you recommend people use? What's safe? What's, we should avoid? Redmond salt, rubs, spices.
Yeah, so I personally, and it's funny because I can preach about variety and what these organ meats bring to the table, but in the sense of me cooking in the kitchen, I keep it super, super simple. So I am a Redmond real salt girl, and I don't have anything else. That being said, there are so many options for people, especially when they are trying to do more meals and make it kind of more, I guess, more standard as far as like making it a breakfast or making it rather than just doing meat and eggs or even just meat and organs. So things like hollandaise sauce for breakfast is an easy one. As far as just doing the fat, the yolks, either water or broth, and salt. So that's a common one I see. Also mayo, it's another one. And again, it's just fat of your choice, whichever you prefer, whether it's bacon grease or tallow, then doing the egg yolks, water or broth, and then salt. And it's just a difference between those two is really just consistency as far as how much water or liquid that you're adding. Other things I've seen people get creative on is if they're incorporating dairy, which I personally don't. So that is something that, if you wanted to do even like a dressing, some people do heavy cream dressings with, again, adding a fat to it to give it like bacon grease or tallow or duck fat, whichever you prefer, and using that as a condiment. Though not having salad, it can be, put on as a dressing, whether it's on your steak. But yeah, I keep it simple. Egg yolks are my steak sauce. So that is a condiment for me. And again, the Redmond real salt. Other things that I've seen is kind of using bone broth as kind of condiment or dipping sauce, or making use of it for stews and soups, whether you put your ground beef into bone broth to make it more like a soup, or I've seen people do pork rinds into bone broth as a cereal, even.
Wow, okay.
So there are definitely ways that you can get creative with these things. But yeah, the bone broth, mayo are more, your the hollandaise, even dressings. Those would be your more day-to-day condiments that you could have in the fridge on hand to spice up different meals without the spices.
a colleague of mine does marrow on his steaks, and I've seen you guys, actually, Petra and Dan, you guys have made some kind of marrow butter too, right?
Oh,
How was that?
bone marrow butter. It's amazing. So you just bake the bone marrow and then scoop it out and whisk it. But you have to let it cool down a bit. And then when you whisk it, it just turns like a really, really light pink. And then you could just put it in like a little glass container, and it keeps pretty fresh for like a good week. And just I make it and I spread it on egg yolk muffins.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's
Yeah,
pretty
the egg yolk muffins have been like a big hit that I've seen for even just keeping things simple amongst breakfast foods, and again, using it kind of like as a vehicle for other foods.
For sure. We've also, I've kind of discovered, because I can't do honey or cheese. I think it's too triggering for me. Like it sets me off on this roller coaster of cravings and throws my hunger cues off. And I've been talking to Daniel recently of this concept of finding the new sweet. So when you're eating animal based, not keto, because on keto, you know, you can still have monk fruit and all that. But when you're eating strictly animal based, you can't eat sweet food anymore. Like it's just not possible. If you want to do honey and you're okay with that, that's okay. But like if you don't do honey, which I don't, I've had to find the new sweet. And maybe that means like the egg yolk muffins with a little bit of bacon grease on top. Like I don't, you know, it is what it is. Or like an egg yolk pudding with some butter. I try to stay away from butter as well because it's dairy, but that will be like a treat for me. And I think it's hard to accept, like it's hard to adjust to, but finding that new sweet, I think, is key to letting go of the addictive behavior, to be honest with you. Like sugar is a hell of a drug.
And many clients that I work with, that is their, you know, their root problem is that they have these addictions, and they're turning to carnivore to get rid of that. So absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I will say one word, and it is glycine, which is an amino acid, and it is a supplement. So if there's any supplement that I would recommend on carnivore to kind of curb that, it has a sweet taste to it. That being said, and for people who can't do dairy, or you're choosing not to do dairy, there are some recipes that use glycine to sweeten things, even if you did it on a
Pudding?
A waffle, like you sprinkled it on a waffle. That is something that will make things sweet. Carnivore soda is what they, you know, for people who like to do sparkling water, they would say, oh, the first couple weeks of carnivore, you're going to have your cravings, do carnivore soda. And all it is a sparkling mineral water with glycine added to it. And it has a sweet taste to it to curb those cravings the first couple weeks. But you can use it in recipes as well. And there are a bunch of options that come to mind to give that sweet factor. And then eventually you won't, you know, once your taste buds change and you're craving more savory things, or you're, you know, expanding as far as zoning in on your diet and what you do need or what you don't necessarily have cravings for anymore, you can get rid of it.
That's interesting. I might have to look into that. I've never heard of that before.
Do you still have your sweet tooth, Petra? Like, do you guys still feel like you need something sweet, or is this more just for fun?
It's more just for fun, or when we hang out with family. Like it was my grandma's 80th birthday and everyone had cake. Like I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it's more triggering. I think this summer for me has been the hardest, like harder than the first summer on this diet. I had ice cream twice, and like it took me like 3-4 weeks to recover. Like it is not a joke. And like I used to live like that every single day, and I used to think it was normal, like tiredness, grogginess, and I just I always feel best eating ruminant meat, drinking water, and salt. Like that's just what and fat. Prioritizing fat, nose to tail, like that's where I'm at, and egg yolks. But yeah,
there are alternatives. There is a carnivore ice cream. It is made with tallow,
right? Yeah.
So yeah, like you even saying that you've you had ice cream and it put you down. No, there's a carnivore ice. These recipes, people are getting creative. So tallow ice cream is a thing. And again, it just depends. I don't know that there actually it is. Yeah, there is a version of it that is ice versus using heavy cream. So there is a dairy-free version of it, but it's tallow ice cream and collagen. And then again, you could add this glycine to give it a sweeter taste versus doing erythritol or stevia or things that are more keto. Another popular one that I've seen is marshmallows, which again, it's using this collagen. For the marshmallows, it's gelatin. So it's tallow with beef gelatin, sea salt, and then adding the glycine to give it that sweet taste. So these are options without the honey, because I have seen a lot of clients that say, well, now people are using honey, but it's very triggering for me. So you don't necessarily have to do honey. The glycine can be that sweet part to it. The other thing, similar kind of to the muffins, would be this whole focus on breakfast foods like your pancakes and your waffles, and those types of foods that are really, there's savory breakfast and there's sweet breakfast. So how do we get around that? And yes, there are the chaffles, which are, your cheese. But again, for me, I've always focused on, well, I don't do cheese. So what do I do? And there are what they're calling, which these names are just hilarious, moffles or lawfuls or boffles. It's and you're using ground meat as the alternative. And that's a great way, because then you can sneak your liver in and your kidney in. So it's using ground meats to make these chaffles or to make these pancakes, putting them in a Vitamix and adding water and eggs and doing things that way. So yeah, that could be and again, if you want to sprinkle glycine on it, if you want that sweet taste, or you're someone who still incorporates keto type of foods and putting berries on your waffles, or it depends on the person, but you can dress it up however you want, however's best for you.
So glycine is just an amino acid?
So yes. So glycine is an amino acid. It comes in the cleanest form that I've found. It is Bulk Supplements is the company that I would say, as far as no additives, because that's something that I just, if you are going to get a supplement, at least make it sure that it's a very clean product. But yeah, so it's an amino acid building block. It's in it is in our protein. But when it's concentrated that way, and a lot of times you'll hear about the methionine glycine ratio, that if you eat too much muscle meat, that you're not getting enough glycine and it's not balancing out, the concerns for that. So a lot of people supplement anyway when they're just doing a meat-based diet, especially if they're not doing nose to tail. So yeah, it's definitely an important aspect, even for that. It has benefits versus just having that sweet taste.
Interesting. I would be open to trying it out. I'm just very wary of having any more crutches. I think I've reached the point in my animal-based journey where like I can recognize my own bullshit, and I know when I'm just like I know that. So a part of me is like, Petra, do you need the glycine? Like, do you really need the sweet stuff? But then a part of me is like, you know what? It's a great alternative to have in your house once in a while. But
right. Yeah, no, it comes down to kind of the control, and it does. Like for some people, it's triggering in that they're kind of spiking that same taste. It's just spiking that though their brain in a similar way.
Does it have that effect like monk fruit does? I read that monk fruit or like stevia, when your tongue touches like the taste of sweet, it spikes your insulin, but there's no
it's kind of that dopamine response.
Yeah, so does the same thing happen with the glycine?
I've seen it both ways. As far as clients, for me personally, no, it doesn't. But for some people, it does. So I think it depends on when you're introducing it into your journey as well.
Right.
To use it as a transition to get over crutches can be helpful. But then also, you know, if you're sound where you're at with ruminants and you know what works for you, that's also it seems like a reasonable time to introduce it, because you have a good grasp on what works for you and what doesn't. So I would say those would be the best times. But if you were to incorporate it, you know, continually throughout and you could not get away from it, then I'd say, all right, let's remove it and figure out other options.
Makes sense.
I do want to jump in and just give some of our viewers maybe new to carnivore, right? Now, a lot of us here are more advanced, right? We've had many, many months or years on carnivore. So I want to give them sort of a message of hope, because I have had a sweet tooth for almost 4 decades of my life. And I thought I was just wired that way. Those are just the cards God dealt me, and I had to deal with it like that. And I've broken that sweet tooth. So I just want people to remember, you guys are coming from like a mountain of crap, like processed food diet. You're all motivated now maybe to do carnivore, be clean. You want to be like awesome at it, not make any mistakes, but it's okay to use those crutches if you need to, because it's still better than where you're coming from, right? If you're coming down to this much crap, it's still better than eating this much crap, right? So I think we've all used different crutches, like, you know, sparkling water or whatever. Like and you're going to have moments of weakness. You're going to have those cravings. You're going to snap. I know I did in the first 5 or 6 months of carnivore. I definitely, you know, just went off diet one night, you know, just ate some stuff that I shouldn't have eaten that wasn't carnivore. But it goes away. It just diminishes with time and becomes less frequent.
I'd love to speak to that, because I personally, my parents actually, I have gotten them on the keto train, and it took about 6 years. So I think it also depends on where you're coming from. Like you said, standard American to carnivore, that's going to be a huge transition.
Mm-hmm.
So they recently recently became keto, and the transition period was so, you know, critical for them. And a lot of the mentality in my family is kind of black or white. So they went in, so like, no, it was a health scare. And for my dad, gastrointestinal, and he's like, okay, what do we got to do? And it was this mentality of, all right, yep, okay, I'm never going to eat pizza again. I'm never going to do that. And I was like, no, that's not the goal. The goal is to find the transitions to get this and to make this a lifestyle. So I think the focus really should be on what's gonna help you make it a lifestyle. Is that going to be, you know, the glycine that helps you get through the night because you're having sugar cravings, and the fact that you're doing, you know, you're making those different condiments, or in order to have a breakfast meal that's similar to everybody else, like they're all eating eggs Benedict and you're sitting there with just ground beef and you're resenting them, and that makes you want to cheat even more. So even with them going keto, I found them those transition brands and products that help them get through that. And then a couple weeks later, they were like, we're not eating the, you know, the crackers, the grain-free crackers that you gave us, or we're not eating those things anymore. We just don't want them. The dessert, you know, that was filling the void, the keto cookie, like we don't make it anymore, because our taste buds have changed. They've healed their body. They're not having those cravings. They're not having that anxiety, the depression, that the mental aspects of it that are linked to your gut. Those go away with time. So absolutely, transitions are key. Do not feel that you need to go cold turkey and that you're a failure if you go back on something. It's finding the transition and what works for you. That's most important.
Yeah. I think crutches are necessary though. Like, I think it's normal, and I probably, to the viewers, I don't want to come off like, you know, savage, like you have to be strict. It's not like that. It's just, for me, like, I am very sensitive. So I do find that when I have ice cream, and I picked vanilla, like I tried to go clean, you know, the most minimal ingredients, and I was out for like 3 weeks. Now, maybe, you know, you won't be like that. Maybe someone else will have ice cream and they'll just be a little bit groggy for 2 days and they'll be back at it. But you won't know until you try. And that's why some people can reintroduce different types of foods, like squash or whatever it may be, and they're fine. But you have to try, right? And it's all self-experimentation, really. And
bio-individuality, I preach it all the time. There's no one size fits all diet. And similar to what you're alluding to, Petra, is that there are some people who are moderators and there are some people who are abstainers.
Yeah.
And so the moderators, they actually get very anxious if you tell them that you cannot have this.
Mhm.
versus the abstainer who's like, no, if like that's not on the list or that's not in part of the protocol, then I'm better off, not having it at all, because I'll have temptations, or I'm not able to just have a moderate amount of it. So I think their personality definitely plays a role, but overall it shouldn't be looked at as, is this carnivore, or can I eat? I get this question all the time. Can I eat that? It's not
Mhm.
a matter of can you. Absolutely, you could eat whatever you want. It's a matter of, what is the goal? Are you trying to minimize inflammation? Are you trying to heal your body? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to gain muscle? Focus on what your goal is, and not this dogmatic approach, and taking it from that perspective. That's also helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. The flexibility, I guess, gives you sustainability. For at least for some people, I think it's important. At least maybe not the
Yeah.
abstainers, but the moderators. It sounds like they definitely need some flexibility.
Yeah, and even so, with recipes and stuff, the abstainers, they find just incorporating variety helps with flexibility. So as opposed to the people who are, oh no, just even meat, beef, or the ruminants, beef, water, salt. When you can see that there is a different way to cook them that's going to change the texture and the taste, you're still eating those three items, as far as abstaining, but you have more options as far as texture and taste. So there's variety in terms of incorporation of different foods, eating nose to tail, but also just in taste and texture alone, and how you're preparing them. So there is, when people say it's a restrictive diet, oh, I want to just make a list of the different foods that I eat. And even for people just doing beef, water, and salt, there is such a long list of things that can be in day to day.
And I mean, I guess it makes sense when people say that it is restrictive. Like from their perspective, they don't realize that there's all this variety possible, and then they think, yeah, it's only meat, only animal products. So I get where they're coming from, but it eventually becomes a choice. It's no longer like, oh, I'm trying to be a carnivore. It's like, no, now I realize how those foods make me feel, so I'm going to abstain. Like I was at a steak place with my auto club a few weeks ago, and there was a dessert option, and they brought out this like dense, like delicious looking chocolate fudge cake, which used to be one of my favorite cakes. And I was pretty close to snapping, but what stopped me from eating it was that, no, I know I'm going to suffer. My sleep will suffer if I eat that for potentially days, and it's not worth it for me to enjoy that. So you start to change the way you think about foods, and it no longer feels restrictive. It's almost like freedom from feeling like crap because of
Right.
foods that you used to eat,
No,
Yeah.
it becomes a choice, and it's funny because those people, weren't saying anything when you were eating all those things as far as your health, or but then they do point it out, like, oh, you're not going to eat this, come on, it's a birthday, or this and that, and it becomes that social awkwardness. But it comes down to you personally, your choice of what you're putting in your body and how it's going to make you feel. And like Petra said, being out for 3 weeks for that ice cream, that wasn't worth it. I went to Italy, and I didn't have a bite of pasta. Granted, it may not have been the same pasta as the U.S., but I didn't find it necessary, and I didn't want to suffer part of my trip when I knew there was meat available like no other, that I was going to feel great on. So yeah, I think it's important you realize what's worth it. Even with my mom and dad, the recent change, my mom had poured milk into, they're not doing dairy, poured milk into her coffee, and she was, no, I threw it out. It wasn't worth it to me to have even that little amount of milk. I thought I would suffer with, she has more skin issues. So you pick and choose what's really going to be most beneficial for you.
For sure.
Okay, so we've already kind of dived into our sort of second section, culinary variety. We talked about condiments. One of the things that we were going to talk about was sort of how to prepare organ-containing dishes, and I think you want to talk about various stews, pate, liverwurst, that kind of stuff. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So as far as the preparation of cooking, it really comes down to, again, texture and taste, but also the concerns for incorporating these organs and shedding light also on what the goals are in your health journey. So whether it is weight loss or muscle gain, or you have autoimmune issues. So with cooking methods, histamines are also something to take note of. The low and slow cooked cuts, which again, the more collagenous cuts, those are often require that slow cooking. But if you have histamine issues, that's a bit of a problem. So for those, more the Instapot or doing it at the most minimum time possible is best. Otherwise, opting for the cuts of steaks, chops, or organs that are more quickly, like high heat cooking methods are better for people with histamine issues. So there's, things to consider, not only taste and texture, but also what your goals are and what your symptoms are as a patient, and what you're looking to get rid of in terms of those symptoms. In terms of, I guess, what else should I touch upon?
Pate?
Or did you have in mind for incorporating those into dishes, just in general? Organ meat dishes?
Yeah, just like, different approaches you have to cooking them. Different dishes that are
Yeah,
popular,
so
tasty.
aside from, taste, texture, and then symptoms, it would be a matter of what types of foods do you like. So I could go on all day about incorporating organs. I think probably if you were to take it from like the ground meat perspective, that's a really easy one. Like I said, incorporating into a ground meat, and then what do you do with this ground meat that has the organ in it? So anything from, a scramble with eggs, very, very easy. Even filling like an omelet, doing an omelet and having that ground beef kind of in the middle, which also brings light to other dishes in terms of like it's a spanakopita, that type of idea, where you do it with prosciutto or like a cured meat, and then on the inside of it you use the ground beef with the organs. So that's the way to do it. Or you could also, instead of prosciutto, you could make it with like eggs as the outer covering. Just doing very thin, like egg, mixing an egg, like a whole egg, but making it a very thin sheet, and then and putting that around the ground beef with the organs. Also similar to that would be like a ravioli. So same type of concept. All of these is basically the ground beef is stuffed in something, whether it's a prosciutto or a cheese or eggs. So those are types of dishes that you could do. Also, a lot of people, they miss the tortillas. So tortillas in New York, where I am originally from, there is a place that does just cheese tortillas. And so great option would be to spread cheese, thin, and then it's a matter of conforming it over heat and using it again as a vehicle. Then you put your ground beef in there with the organs, or you could even just add organs themselves, chopping up into smaller pieces. Brain is a easy one to put in there, creamy texture, so it almost gives you that brain with ground beef. So it almost gives you that like Taco Supreme from Taco Bell. So that's an option.
So the brain becomes like guacamole, kind of like, or like
Yeah,
sour
like
cream kind of texture.
like a sour cream, like a smooth texture.
Okay.
Absolutely. What other things that people? Oh, so again, I think of it in the sense of what people are going to go, oh, I feel like I'm lacking this. So pizza is another one. Doing a pizza instead, where you're doing ground beef, and then again you can incorporate those organs into that ground beef, doing a thin sheet and baking it. So that'll be your crust, and then on top, if you incorporate sauce, fine, but you can just do a meat and cheese pizza. On top of that, you put more, like if you want to do salami, or you want to do liverwurst, or if you want to do cheese, shredded cheese. So that's an option to kind of give you that, oh, I'm having pizza. Another way to cook that ground meat as the base is on the grill to give it a little more crispy, kind of like your New York style pizza. So that's another option. Also using ground meat, like we had discussed, as like for a waffle or for a pancake, but also for like a quiche, like the base of a quiche or the base of a pie. And if you want to make it super mild, you can do ground chicken versus ground beef as far as taste, but using that as a layer, crisping it up, again, baking it, I would say would be the best bet. And then if you want to do your pie or your quiche on top of that with the eggs, with cheese, adding bacon to it, those are options for breakfast or for even a type of dessert. You can do the egg pudding on top of like a ground chicken base, and then adding a little bit of glycine on there, and that's your new carnivore pie or carnivore cake. So that's another option. Burgers, you can always grill a burger, you can bake a burger, but adding an element to them as far as getting the organs in, then you can wrap them in bacon. You can do them more as like a Greek, I'm blanking on the name of what those are called, but when you put them on a skewer and do them on the grill, that's another way. What is it?
Is it souvlaki? Like on the stick?
Souvlaki? Yeah, right? Like where it's ground meat versus like a kebab would be.
Oh, okay.
Meat.
Right.
I think it might be souvlaki.
Or like
is that doner? Is that what we're talking about?
Gyro?
Heroes?
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it. I always get it wrong.
With like a K.
I always mumble it.
But it's another option. So yeah, I think all of these methods are obviously with the ground meat. So incorporating the organ into the ground meat. Those are all ways to do it. I'm trying to think of other ways.
So many ideas, and we're just on ground beef. So to those
I know
variety on this diet,
like just doing the organ itself or mixing it with steaks, or this is just with ground beef. Scotch eggs is another one, which is pretty popular, which is the ground beef around like a hard-boiled egg.
That's tasty.
And yeah, so creating that is another one. I know there's recipes with just putting ground meat in like a muffin tin and then doing like an egg yolk on top. That's another thing I've seen. So yeah, people are getting really creative, even just with meat and eggs. So then when you use the ground meat again as the vehicle for your eating nose to tail, it makes it super, super easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the one that these guys talk about a lot is brain pancakes. I don't know if we talked about that already, but that seems to be really popular and tasty.
So good, yeah. We make lamb brain pancakes because I found this halal butcher shop, and they sell like frozen lamb brain pancakes. You get about like 6 for $10, which is really good.
They're already in pancake form?
No, sorry, the brain.
The brain.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, okay. That's
like, what is this
that'd be cool though.
Do they have a discount code?
Yeah, no kidding.
No. I wish. I make them myself just with eggs and just blend it up. They're honestly amazing, and you can't even taste the brain. But I've been dying to try this Romanian recipe. I'm originally from Romania, and we used to eat a lot of brain. But my parents would fry it, or my grandparents would fry it in vegetable oil. And then they would first boil it. And then once it's boiled, put it in a pot with ice so that it cools off and it's easier to slice really, really thin. And then once it's sliced, they would put it in flour, egg, and like breadcrumbs. So I want to try to make the carnivore version of that because I have the panko breadcrumbs, and obviously minus the vegetable oils and minus the flour. Yeah.
Excellent. That is such a great idea. And that's another great point, is that as far as texture or taste, like, the pork rinds, the panko pork rinds, that's an awesome alternative. A lot of people are, like I said, I keep it simple. So I don't have these crazy kitchen appliances. I don't have your air fryer. I don't even have the Instapot. I just have a slow cooker, and the grill I'll go over to my friends. But yeah, I don't have these crazy. I keep it simple. So, but by adding the pork rinds, that definitely adds an element of texture and also helps with the organs, doing the fried version of it, so that it's more palatable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially with you know, you can do meatballs without pork rinds, but adding that, or the other what was the other thing I was thinking of? I guess more snacky foods with the pork rinds, and jerkies and things like that. So slicing it thin, and like you said, putting it in with egg, and then the pork rinds.
Lots of ideas.
Yep, for sure.
I think we've covered all the sort of culinary variety topics we were going to go over. Should we go to maybe the third part of the episode then?
Yeah,
sure.
So I guess we kind of touched on this a bit, but what are some of your tips on how to eat animal-based carnivore with a busy lifestyle, but still maintaining some variety? So we did kind of touch on that. One thing I would like to add from personal experience, I think having an air fryer, if you're a person that's on the go and you're not really used to like putting in that love for yourself for cooking, an air fryer can really be helpful.
Yeah, and a time saver.
Yes.
Similar with the Instapot, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, like I didn't thaw my meat, and now it's frozen, and I got nothing. What am I gonna do?" So especially with COVID and restaurants being closed down, that has been a concern. So I totally agree that certain appliances in the kitchen are helpful. For me, I am all right, what am I going to eat tonight? I'm going to thaw it, and I just pull it out. It's an everyday thing. In the morning, I pull it out. So kind of knowing I'm going to eat a steak, or I'm going to eat more organs tonight. But portioning out organs is pretty important, because they don't last as long in the refrigerator. So portioning them out is important. I usually do 2 to 3 days at a time. I actually posted about this on my Instagram, because they only last 2 to 3 days in the refrigerator once they've been frozen. And a lot of the concern is, well, I have to refreeze it, and then am I losing nutrients, or am I losing, you know, is there a breakdown of the proteins, the amino acids? What is that doing to the actual meat? Again, all the more reason that we should be eating it from food and supplements, because these are sensitive foods. So portioning it out, doing it in a container, whether you do, some people like the little small containers and they do it on a daily, they'll do their portion for the day. I'll do it 2 to 3 times a day, because I eat them pretty much every day. So doing that, glass container, putting it in the freezer, and then taking it out and thawing it in the morning. Again, thawing your steak in the morning. Always have eggs. That's another staple. You can do so much with eggs. And the other thing would be to prepare kind of on a weekly basis, because you don't want to, I find that sometimes when you do say, well, meal prep or this and that, then it becomes a lot for people, and they're already, you know, it's overwhelming. So the other thing I would suggest is, you don't have to meal prep for every day and have everything lined out perfectly. But if you did a roast each week, or in the Instapot or in a crock pot, similar to how you'd prepare, oh, I'm going to make my bone broth, and then you have it for a week or two, do a roast. A lot of these meats you can do, and they'll require, you know, more slow cooking, like the chuck roast, your brisket, the tri-tip, lamb leg roasts. Those definitely require the longer times. So do a roast and then chop it up and freeze parts of it. The other thing would be to make it in shredded form. So those are going to be your lamb shoulder, your pork butt, or your pork shoulder is the other name for it. And having shredded meats, you can do so much similar with ground beef with a shredded meat. So doing that and having it on the go, or having it to make those tacos, or to even just do the shredded meat and put some egg yolks on it. I mean, you can make it as fancy or as least fancy as you want it. So those are all good tips and tricks just for preparation and having it on the go and not having to create this gourmet meal every single day.
That's fantastic. I was wondering, how same sort of question, but how you would navigate that on a limited budget.
Yeah, so similarly, the roasts are great options, and not only for, you don't have to get a roast and then cook it all at once. So another option to save money is to buy it, though it may seem more upfront as far as the costs, where they'll have like your prime rib or your your larger cuts. Then you cut those into steaks. So getting like a chuck roast and cutting it into chuck steaks is a great way to save money over the long run, because otherwise, if you buy the steak itself, it will be priced per pound, and it's often a little bit higher price because they've already cut it for you. So cutting it yourself, getting the roast, and then cutting it is a great way to save money. The other way is, getting more your ground meats to save money versus your ribeyes every single night. There are great cuts of meat that are steak that aren't ground meat too. So again, the chuck roasts, your brisket, your tri-tip, those are less than your New York strips, than your ribeyes. Hanger steaks are generally very good deals, very tender. Your filet is going to obviously be your more expensive one, but flat irons, flanks, those are also on the leaner side, and those are easy to do on a grill as well. So price points are less than the fillets, but also still lean. Again, shredded meat, so getting the pork butt, getting the lamb leg. I'm trying to think of stew meat is often also another great option. Stew meat's very inexpensive. Doing that, and you can actually cook that. You could do a double whammy, cook that in your bone broth, in the crock pot, and you've done two things at once, to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. The other thing is buying like a whole chicken, roasting a whole chicken. I mean, how much we've focused mostly on beef, but a whole chicken provides numerous meals, and it's very inexpensive in comparison to beef. So yeah, those would be other options. What's that?
Use the bones after too and make broth.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I feel like we've definitely focused more on beef, but when you're thinking nose to tail, you're including every animal. So for me, I cook with the chicken feet in my broth, and then I eat them. I do them under the broiler and crisp them up, or put them in an air fryer. You can and have those as a snack, and you're getting the calcium from the bones. You're getting the collagen. There's no muscle on these chicken feet. This is collagen and bone, and it's a great nose to tail snack, but very, very inexpensive. That's the other thing with these organ meats versus what a lot of people are pushing with supplements. Organ meats a pound, it's $7, $8, $9. These are the most nutrient dense foods you can get. So a lot of time my plate is filled up more with organs than it is with that expensive ribeye. So even considering that, you'll be saving money for sure.
Yeah, that's a great list. And I do think organ meats are very affordable, and like you can make a beef heart or a beef tongue for under $10. Where I get it from, I think it's under $10. It's grass fed, grass finished. And if you are working on a limited budget, you can save that tongue and eat it in a span of 3 days with fillers like eggs. You can air crisp some beef fat, which is also fairly cheap. So
yeah, we did not talk about tongue as extensively as we should have. You're absolutely right. There is so much you can do with beef tongue, and it comes in, usually a beef tongue is about 3 pounds. So yes, it requires slow cooking and the removal of the membrane, but you know, that's what I'm here to help out with. There's definitely a million YouTube videos. There's a way to do it. And once you do it once, you become a pro, and you can easily save that. That's actually one of the best cuts to save, to put in the freezer, because it is higher. It has a pretty good ratio of fat to protein, like a 1-to-1. So it keeps very well in the freezer. Once you heat it back up, it's not dry. It's very, very good. And you can pan sear it with additional fat, and it tastes phenomenal.
Absolutely.
You made a good point about there's other sort of things in the animal kingdom we haven't talked about. So like you said, poultry, but like there's seafood too, right? So especially if you want to eat nose to tail and want a quick snack, you know, like a can of sardines. I mean, the thought of eating sardines might make people balk, but if you don't look at what you're eating, it actually just kind of tastes like tuna, like you're eating tuna with a spoon, and it's like, it's the whole animal, right? So it's like head to toe. Absolutely. There's little bones in it that you don't even really, you can't really tell you're chewing on them, but you are.
No,
actually.
there's a lot of calcium in the sardines as well. And the other thing with fish, particularly seafood, is the skins. So if you can, you know, get a hold of fish skins and crisp those up, those are basically a form of a pork rind just from seafood. So that becomes a vehicle for additional meals or additional dipping things. If you want to dip your, you know, crispy salmon skins into your egg yolks, that's an awesome snack. That's amazing. So yeah, absolutely. Seafood is a great option for additional nose to tail carnivore.
And just for a quick snack too, like smoked salmon, I just have some slices, you know, it's sealed in a package just in my fridge. So if I need to grab something quick, don't have time to cook, then I just do
absolutely. And there's more and more of these kind of crisps or these options for snacks. So yeah, a lot of people are doing what you'll see commonly is the dehydrated meat, where it becomes a crisp, as again a vehicle for something, or the pork rinds that we mentioned. I mean, you can do pork rind nachos, where you do pork rinds, you put ground beef over top of it, and then you know, your choice of sauce, whether that's an egg yolk, or if you're still doing avocados, like whatever you know, keto carnivore-ish. Yeah, so there's having, I think when people see it more as like, oh, this is an alternative, it's a vehicle for other things, then it increases that variety. And quick on the go is always convenient too, though. You know, as you transition into carnivore, you'll see snacking it becomes less of a thing, because you're very, very satiated on these foods.
Yeah,
for sure. Petra, you were saying something before. I don't know if you got.
Oh, I was just saying that we had some smoked salmon today too. It was so good.
Yeah.
I was feeling pretty crappy today because again, this is day one, no coffee for me.
Oh, congrats.
Honestly, I'm up and down. Coffee for 2 weeks straight, then no coffee. But I know when I'm thriving, and I know when I'm not, and I know when like I get a little bit off track. Having coffee every day messes me up. So I just have to work on that discipline and find out if I can have coffee once in a while or not. So today was a little rough, but I'm telling you, I had a few pieces of that smoked salmon, and it was like I felt my energy just kind of firing back up. And on the whole topic of supplements, I used to, prior to this diet, when I was more, you know, plant-based, I was still eating standard American or Canadian diet, but I always thought plants were healthier. I was supplementing B12 for hair, skin, and nails, and like my hair was falling out. So I'm one of those people that is convinced that these supplements are just lies, because I start eating meat, I start eating my organ meats, and my hair is a bush right now. I have it tied up because it was wet. I took a shower, but it's like, if you guys are low in certain nutrients, I highly encourage just get it from the source. There's no better way.
Absolutely. Hair, skin, nails, you named it. I have found even just, I'm cutting my nails like on a weekly basis. It's crazy how quickly they grow. And even my skin, I've gotten more compliments on skin. That's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down as far as putting tallow on your skin, because I myself have started just being more conscious of chemicals and products and whatnot, and have turned to tallow products, and oh my God, it's amazing. So yes, beef beef wins again. There's just so many nutrients in these, not only the organs, but the meat. And you'll see all around, not only feeling better, but looking better and in different aspects as well.
Yeah, supplements. I mean, I've written down some like problems with supplements, but I mean, there's the whole issue of like impurities, toxins in it. Even Paleo Medicina, they say that some supplements can contribute to leaky gut. You don't know if it's absorbed properly, if it's the most bioavailable form. And so I was one of those people too. Like I was on like 12 capsules of different vitamins and minerals a day, and like now I'm on nothing and feeling much better than I did. Like I don't think the supplements really did anything, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
broke. They're so darn expensive.
yeah, I'm spending that on food instead. Yeah.
No, but even, that, and people are, I get it. Organs aren't something that if you didn't grow up on them, it's harder to wrap your head around. But for me, I always try and give them a different perspective and say, but I go like, yes, now I'm carnivore and organs are very routine for me. If you were to put, cookies in front of me or something that was a processed item from the grocery store, I would think absolutely not. That is repulsive. At least with organs, okay, oh man, it's an organ, but you are getting the highest amounts of nutrients. So you do have to keep that into perspective that yes, food isn't always about fun and being, I do believe it should be enjoyable, which is why I'm so hung on the organ meats and eating nose to tail and making it enjoyable for people. But you also have to look at nutrients and what it is doing for your body and fueling your body. So twofold, I believe that organ meats, not only is there variety, but it's also the most nutrient dense thing you can provide your body with. So different perspective. Yes, it's a brain, but it's doing a lot for you.
Yeah, I mean, looking at food as a fuel and only really putting in your body the things that your body needs. If you can look at it as that perspective and not as like a purely hedonistic act, like, oh, my food has to taste like I'm going to heaven every time I take a bite. If you can get away from that mentality, I think it'll serve you a lot better.
I agree. Absolutely.
So Alicia, Petra, you guys have been eating this way for a while. So do you have any tips to add to what Austin was telling us about, like, eating, when time is a factor and when budget is a factor? Anything you guys have picked up that you can add?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I personally think we used to spend a lot more money on food at the beginning of this diet when we first started because we were so confused, not knowing how much to eat. I think we were kind of Sean Baker style the first few months with just eating steaks. And then as you learn and as you educate yourself on the importance of nose to tail, and I think it can become a lot more sustainable. We were actually at Costco today because we get our wild caught salmon from Costco and hamburgers, super cheap. And like if you think about it, it comes in a frozen bag, the salmon, and it's 38 Canadian dollars. You get about 7 to 9 pieces, and they're pretty big. And we have that bag for an entire month. We paid $38 for it. I mean, you're telling me you can't afford $38 for your health? Right. And I also think like if you can eat grass-fed, that's awesome. But if you can't, I don't think that it should be a reason for you not to embark on an animal-based diet. Just kind of looking at the meat options at Costco, like I saw a massive kind of package of pork belly. Like I don't even know how many pounds that was, like probably 5-6 pounds for $25. Like you're good for an entire month. It's just all about planning and having your cheap fillers, like you said, the beef fat, the eggs. If you eat cheese, you can stock up on some cheese, ground beef, again, hamburgers, and then you can have your more expensive cuts and make a roast a week and kind of portion that. So I hope that kind of answers.
Totally doable.
Yeah, it is doable. It's totally doable. And especially with the community of people that we have on the Facebook groups, on Instagram, on YouTube, like it is so doable.
Absolutely.
For sure. And if people, again, just with the grain-fed, grass-fed, if you're worried, again, these are nuances that are, if you're eating animal products, you're already doing phenomenal things for your body. But if you are really worried about, let's say, you know, everyone's talking about the PUFAs or the grain-fed versus grass-fed, then get the grain-fed, but go for the leaner cuts and add the fat that you want to add to prevent the, you know, to minimize those toxins that are in the fat of the grain-fed beef. So there's ways around it. There's tips and tricks by all means.
Absolutely.
And if I might add, you know, health is priceless, right? You only have one body, treat it right.
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah, we actually do that too. Like we very rarely eat steaks now, and when we do, they're corn fed. But we prioritize that all of our organ meats, bone marrow, all the bones that we use to make broth, that everything else is grass fed.
Absolutely. That's totally.
That doesn't mean that I won't eat corn fed. Like when you go to a restaurant in Toronto, I mean, we've had our meetups and stuff. I'm pretty sure what we eat is corn fed and it's still delicious, right? But
so New York is the home of steakhouses.
yeah.
There is not one grass-fed steakhouse.
So
you would have to go to an Argentinian steakhouse in order for there to be a grass-fed option. I've, you know, been living half my carnivore, almost 2.5, 3 years. Half of that was grain-fed, you know, and then you make adjustments. You say, oh, okay, well, the toxins are in the fat, so then I'll add my grass-fed, grass-finished suet to a leaner cut. Like those are the details you figure out, and you know, your journey evolves. But by all means, animal products, nose to tail, grain-fed, grass-fed, you know, those nuances, you're doing your body a favor by focusing on animal products to begin with.
Yeah.
I'll add a couple quick tips just to save time. I mean, cast iron skillet has revolutionized my life in terms of being able to make a steak quickly. Like really, total work time on the steak is like 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops. I mean, you know, you got to just thaw the steak and then heat up your oven and put it on broil, and I cook it inside there, and it's very quick. And then in terms of cooking fats, I've been doing beef tallow, but I make it myself. Like you basically just, you know, put some ground suet. I put a couple pounds in the cast iron skillet and cover it for a couple hours. And then I've got all this tallow, and I just put it through a cheesecloth, and that will last me months and months and months, that amount of tallow. So if people are looking for like a good cooking fat, if it's grass fed, and it'll be good for you. It'll have all the sort of fat soluble vitamins in it too. So that's sort of my contribution to the time thing. And as far as the budget thing goes, I made a post about this on Facebook because I want to give people a bit of perspective. Because like, you know, first of all, you know, if you're eating carnivore, okay, we talked about supplements, you save money there. And then on carnivore, you're more satiated. So you're eating less food in total. You're not buying any of the processed food, the foods, the plant foods. So that may also reduce your total amount of money spent, or maybe it's just a wash. And then like Alicia said, like, you know, you only get one body, and it is literally you, right? Your brain too. Your body isn't just like from the neck down. It's like how you perform in your brain, like your intellect. So, you know, you can just imagine if you've got brain fog, you're tired, you're not performing as well at work, you're going to miss promotions, you're going to miss job opportunities, potentially. You may get fired from a job. And then, you know, so that's money you could be earning that you're now losing because you haven't invested upfront in your food and your diet. And then later on in life, or even earlier on, people can become disabled and they go on disability leave, they get forced into retirement. So we're talking tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of potential lost dollars. So I really think it makes sense to like cut a little off the top of like luxuries, like lavish vacations, or, you know, there's things that people spend money on that are not as essential. I'm not saying don't do them, but just cut them down like 10%, put some of that money into upgrading your food, and you can make a huge difference in your health and, you know, your ability to perform at whatever you're trying to achieve. And it'll end up saving you money in the long run.
Yeah, and just overall longevity. You're going to live longer, and you're going to be able to do those things. Money comes and goes, and, you know, the upfront cost is well worth it. Otherwise, later down the line, you're going to be spending that money on hospital bills and medications because you are so insulin resistant and you have chronic disease that, well, you know, you're 70, you're 80, well, we just got to manage this. And it's much harder to change your habits at that point. So yes, I completely agree.
Yeah, and sometimes it's too late, right? Like, I mean, earlier in life, you can reverse some of these things, but once you've got a stroke, you've got a stroke, right? Once you've had a heart attack, like that's it, right? That part of your body is damaged for good.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Austin. Well, I mean, I guess we'll just wrap up a little bit. We wanted to ask you if you could leave our viewers with one message that would help them with their journey, what would that be?
It would be to remain open-minded and also to keep it simple. Honestly, the whole reason, you know, I incorporated organ meats and nose to tail was to further my health journey, and it really has just significantly improved the carnivore lifestyle for me. But this wasn't something that was just created overnight. So I obtained the organ, and as intimidating as it may be for people, I would get it and I would cook it every way I knew how, and figured out for me, what is the best taste? What is the best texture? What else could I do with this? So that's what I'm trying to bring light to people and sharing those experiences. But don't be afraid at yourself and experiment. Maybe one method is better for you as opposed to another. But remain open-minded. Again, this is for your health. This is for your overall well-being today. And the choices you make today there's no doubt they're going to affect you later in life. So getting on board and getting a little uncomfortable, just remain open-minded, keep it simple. Like I said, I don't have the appliances or any of I'm a simple girl, so I can totally relate to that. And I've made it work. It's made cooking for me and just the carnivore lifestyle overall very, very enjoyable. I look forward to every single meal. I look forward to being in the kitchen. So I know other people can do it as well. And once they start seeing the effects and how they feel, then it becomes a no-brainer.
Okay, great. So on that note, where can people find you online, and what can you help them with if they come to you to kind of talk to you about this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm most active on Instagram at Quality Carnivore, also on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that I will be starting soon, so it's up and running, but I just haven't posted any videos yet. But my website is qualitycarnivore.com. I encourage you to write into me, give me feedback. If there's certain things that you want to see, especially ideas for videos for YouTube, by all means. I appreciate the feedback for sure. And that is also the kind of hub for clients to, you know, of course, they can personal message me, DM me on these social platforms, but the website as well has a form to book an appointment. I see clients regularly. I offer Q&A sessions for those who kind of want to just refine things, or if they just have a couple questions, versus more formal consultations where we're going to be working together on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, whether it's for 6 weeks or 3 months, getting their carnivore journey started, or again, refining it because they're still having some symptoms. And I also do laboratory. Included in those services is lab recommendations and reviews, whether it's a separate service or with a more formal consultation. So a lot of options, really, you know, just trying to spread the word and help clients feel their best. I think it is so important. I think diet is such a, you know, the root cause, or the root of a lot of the problems that we're seeing on in healthcare, in this health space, as far as chronic disease, autoimmune disease. So like I said, I work from clients that are, hey, I just want to like optimize my health and prevent disease, to, hey, I have an autoimmune disease and you know, this is my last straw. So feel free to reach out on any of those platforms, and I'd be happy to help.
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure we link all those in the description. I'll get them from you after this, and make sure people can reach you. And yeah, thanks so much for the discussion and for being on our show.
The pleasure has been mine. Thank you guys so much. It's been awesome. And like I said, I could go on forever about this stuff. So yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It was great meeting you.
You too.
See you.
All right, guys. So Alicia, Petra, thank you to you guys as well for joining today. And I guess we'll see everyone next time on our next episode.
Have a good
so much.
evening, guys.
All right, take care, guys. Good night.
Bye.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.